Glenn Beck is going to give us some advice about the Ebola situation. It's just amazing how people like Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly did this the other night where he lectures the head of the CDC as if he knows better than the doctors and the scientists and the researchers. But this time with Beck, it's not only stupid and wrong and pathetic, it also crosses the line into dangerous.
Listen to me carefully, America. Listen to me. This may actually save your life someday. I want you to remember this. Whatever the government says to do, don't. If they say gather someplace because it's all going to be good, we have all this medical aid and everything's going to be just come over here and gather, don't do it.
We have a really beautiful place for you guys right behind this barbed wire right here. Really
just don't do it.
Great
don't
view.
do it. Don't do it. I mean, just remember what they did with Katrina.
The problem with Katrina was too little government. The government should have been more involved and telling people what to do more, and FEMA should have been involved earlier and done more. It's the exact opposite lesson than what you think the lesson is. He's like, if only the government did less in Hurricane Katrina, it would have been better. Never listen to the government. No, the government should have done more. They should have said more. People should have listened to it more. Again, he's taking the exact wrong answer out of this. And understand, this really is dangerous. Now, thankfully, Glenn Beck's numbers are pathetic, okay? And he really doesn't have that many followers. But even if there's a handful of people who listen to him, that's a horrible thing to say. I mean, you should listen to the CDC and the NIH and the FDA and people involved in a situation like this because they really are on the case, and if they make some mistakes, they're going to have to be the ones to correct the mistakes because their word is the final word on this, and they actually are trying to contain any possible outbreak and trying to fix the situation. They're the only people working on it. He's saying, the only group of people that are trying to help you with this, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them, but that's like, okay, so why not take it a step further? Or this isn't even a step further, this is just flat out what he's advocating for. Why not, when there's a food recall, why not say, no, fuck that. Oh, there's a salmonella outbreak with a certain kind of peanut butter, and they're about to take them all off the shelves? Wrong. Go and buy all of them and eat all of them. They say there's salmonella in there, but never listen to the government, do the exact opposite, so don't do that. There's a food recall, fuck it, I don't care. Go right to the factory, buy all the peanut butter from that particular company, eat it all. Why? Because fuck the government, that's why. I mean, for fuck's sake, we've done stories about rotten meat suppliers for McDonald's. The government had to step in and save the day and say, we're regulating you, we're going to shut your punk ass down because you're selling moldy, disgusting, rotten meat. If the government didn't step in and didn't tell people what to do, we'd be in a much worse situation. I mean, how many examples... The term snake oil salesman comes from the reality that when there's no regulation of the marketplace, people sell snake oil, or they used to sell snake oil as a cure for everything, and it didn't work for anything. So it takes the government to step in and say, you can't sell a product and pretend it's a cure when it's not. I mean, I've read articles about how there are Ebola cure scams popping up all over the place now, and desperate people, in West Africa and other places, they're like spending what remains of their money in order to do something like this, and they're just being scammed. Again, if the government steps in and says, hey, heads up, these guys are scammers. We're about to shut them down, but don't buy from them, okay? Don't do it. Well, you should be listening to them. It's just a dangerous thing. Look, and I get it, man. Are there examples of the government not acting in good faith, being ridiculous? Are there examples of them at times doing false flag attacks and whatnot? Absolutely. I'm not a person who says all conspiracy theories are wrong because that's ridiculous and not true. Of course, some conspiracies are true, but also others are not true. But if you want to talk about things that were true, the Tuskegee experiments, the Bay of Pigs, Gulf of Tonkin, I mean, the list goes on and on. So there are things that are genuine conspiracies, and there are things that they did that were wrong. I mean, another example is when we were trying to, we used vaccines that weren't really vaccines in Pakistan or someplace like that for some nefarious purpose. I think it had to do with getting bin Laden or whatever, okay? I don't know all the details of it, but I do know that we have used vaccines over there in the wrong way. But that doesn't mean that all vaccines are wrong and that they're all bad and that the government's always trying to do the wrong thing. No, we also eradicated polio with the vaccine. Okay? This idea that everything is either black or white, on or off, it's either all bad or all good. Wrong. Wrong. And when you talk about a situation like Ebola, believe me, the CDC and the NIH and the rest of them, they are working on it and doing their best to try to contain a possible outbreak and doing their best for the country. The idea that in a situation like this, you don't listen to the medical experts. Motherfucker, they're the only ones that are actually trying to tell the truth here. I mean, look at the media has been hyping shit up for so long about Ebola now. People who are watching the news and listening about Ebola, they never can even tell you, hey, it's not airborne. They can't tell you that. They think it's airborne. There was a study about this recently. I think it came out of Rutgers, where the more people watch the news and listen about Ebola, none of them can tell you how it actually spreads. And it's not airborne. It's through bodily fluids. But they can't tell you because the media is not doing their job and they're not telling you. Okay? Well, who is telling you? The CDC is telling you that. So again, the one group of people you should be listening to, dumbass Glenn Beck comes out here and says, don't listen to them. I mean, you have set up a system where it's a cult of personality. And we have a guy who claims like all knowledge and he spews things that are false and insane. I mean, it reminds me of Pat Robertson when he talks about how he faith heals people and they do prayers at the end of the show and somebody right now in Wisconsin has an infection and I just cured you. And it's like, that you don't do that, because then there's somebody out there who has cancer and they don't have any insurance and they're like, well, I could just pray and hope maybe Pat says something for me and it'll help me out. Even if it's one person, you just possibly gave that person a death sentence because you convinced them that they shouldn't go to the hospital, they shouldn't listen to the experts. In this case with Ebola, don't listen to the government, the only group of people actually trying to fix the situation. I mean, and Glenn Beck, again, you want a perfect example of how moronic this viewpoint is in some ways. There are pockets all around the U.S. now of higher outbreaks of certain things that we have vaccines for. Measles, for example. There's an outbreak of that in some places. Why? Because some people think they're smarter than the scientists and the doctors and the researchers and the experts who tell them, get a vaccine. Get all these vaccines. Here are the list of the ones that we have. If you get these vaccines, you're going to virtually eliminate your possibility of any of these diseases. But what do people do? No, I'm not going to listen to the government because I'm going to do the opposite of what the government says because I'm smarter than that. Glenn Beck told me so I guess I'll do that. No, you're creating a bigger problem. You're an ignorant fuckhead. You don't have a medical degree. You don't know what you're talking about. Yet you're trying to override those people because you have a microphone in front of you and a shitty network.